Today I want to talk about what to do when you fail. I've done a lot of that this year. Failing to meet goals, failing to meet some obligations, and generally just sucking. Now, I haven't failed everything, and a lot of the most important things I was able to succeed. But it doesn't feel good when you fail to hit one of your goals. And as I've mentioned before, I tend to set really aggressive goals, and so my failure rate is really high. Because of that, I've had to learn all sorts of coping skills for how to deal with failure. And if I'm being honest, I think that my ability to deal with failure is probably one of my greatest strengths. So I want to share a little bit about how I think about failure. Hopefully you can get some value from this too. For anybody who's new to the channel, my name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written 26 books. I've published most of them. And I make these videos because there are a lot of authors out there who just feel a little bit lost, and I don't want you to be one of them. Today, we're going to be talking about failure. And honestly, failure is something that happens a lot if you're an author. In fact, if you're a creative of any kind, you've probably experienced a lot of failure in your life. Either failing to produce what you've envisioned in your head, or failing when you've tried to go out and sell what you've created, or failure in showing something that you love and you've made to somebody else and seeing their sort of lackadaisical expression and knowing that they didn't love it as much as you did, or maybe they downright hated it. If you're an author, you've probably gotten comments from people who have read your work just saying, this isn't good, or I don't like that. If you spend time online, you've probably gotten tons of these comments as well. If you've tried to sell your books on Amazon, you might have gotten negative reviews or just not sold any books. You know, this is a really tough line of work, and you're going to experience failure in it. So let's talk about how you can turn failure into drive by simply changing your mindset about it. If you have failed to hit a goal, then there's something you need to do before anything else. You need to be honest with yourself. You've heard that honesty is the best policy, but that's not entirely accurate. Honesty is the only policy. There can be absolutely no question about this. You need to be 100% brutally honest with yourself. I follow a principle that I call ruthless honesty, and it has served me incredibly well when it comes to dealing with failure, especially my failure. By being ruthlessly honest about my situation, about my motivations, about the circumstances, about the quality of my work, about everything, I give myself a firm foundation to stand on. You might think that if you're completely honest about the quality of your work, or you're completely honest about your circumstances, or you're completely honest about your action or your failure to take action, you're undercutting yourself. But the truth is that if you can be ruthlessly honest, you can create the most solid foundation from which to move forward. Ruthless honesty helps us dig down to bedrock. It helps us get down to the real core of the issue. It helps us to cut away all of the chaff, all of the stuff that's blocking our vision so that we cannot address the real problem. Ruthless honesty is going to get you to the heart of why you are not achieving the things you want to achieve. And it sucks. It's hard. Admitting to yourself that you're the one to blame, admitting to yourself that your books are not as good as you thought they were, admitting to yourself that you're not living up to the standard that you set is really hard. Believe me, I do it all the time, and it never gets easier. But this habit of being ruthlessly honest with myself, of not trying to make myself feel better by giving excuses, of not trying to make myself more important than I actually am, allows me to get to the heart of what I need to do to move forward. So when I fail to meet a goal, the first thing I do is be ruthlessly honest about why I failed to meet the goal. And occasionally, you're going to find out that it's not because of you. There are actually external circumstances that you could not have overcome. Sometimes that happens. Let's take a micro example. If I am sitting in my chair at my desk and I'm working on a chapter, it is the last chapter I have for the day, and my wife calls me and says, "Hey, Seth, I need you upstairs right now. We're having a crisis." And I get up from my chair and I go to solve that crisis and I never get to the chapter. Guess what? In my ruthlessly honest examination of that situation, that's okay. I could not have achieved my goal. Now, I might feel bad about the fact that I didn't meet my word count goal for the day, but as I am examining myself, in my ruthlessly honest examination of myself, I understand why I didn't. But if I'm sitting in my chair and I'm writing and I get a text message and I start texting somebody and then I get up and I wander away and I do something else and I get distracted, in my ruthless examination of why I didn't meet my word count goal for the day, I am the one at fault. Ruthless honesty is the only way that we clarify our position so that we can move forward. Once we have been ruthlessly honest with ourselves, we need to be radically responsible. We need to take full responsibility for the situation and then move forward. I like to use the term aggressive humility. This is a principle that, again, has served me very, very well. I've been ruthlessly honest, so I understand my situation, and then I am aggressively humble in taking full responsibility for everything. This doesn't mean that I take blame for my situation, because a lot of times I'm not at fault or I shouldn't be carrying the blame for the situation. Sometimes I should, but I can take responsibility, whether I'm to blame or not. Taking responsibility is simply saying I'm going to accept the consequences of my situation. I'm going to accept my circumstances, and I'm going to move forward in light of my circumstances. That's all it is. And then comes the most important part. We relentlessly focus on improving. We refocus on our goal. We reset our equilibrium, knowing that even if we mess up, even if we don't achieve it, that's okay, because we're going to run this process again. We're going to be honest with ourselves about where we messed up. We're going to accept responsibility, and we are going to focus on relentless improvement. If you're like me and you fail to meet your goals, this is a tried and true method for how to pick yourself back up and keep going.